You know what's really ironic? An organization that systematically destroys families through shunning, labels former members as mentally diseased, and discourages professional mental health treatment wants to lecture you about having a positive attitude. Let me show you exactly why the Watchtower's advice about happiness and mental health isn't just hypocritical, it's downright dangerous. You ready? Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into a Watchtower article that, on the surface, seems to offer helpful advice about attitude and happiness. It's titled Attitude Makes a Difference. And you might be thinking, well, what's wrong with encouraging a positive attitude? And you would be absolutely correct about that. There's nothing inherently wrong with that message. And in fact, as we go through this article, I'll point out where they actually get some things right, keeping in mind that I am not a mental health professional and this is not mental health advice. But here's the problem. When this advice comes from an organization that actively causes mental health crises through its policies, we need to examine not just what they're saying, but the dangerous context in which they're saying it. So right from the start, the article asks, quote, which of the following do you think has the biggest effect on your happiness? Your circumstances, your genes, or your attitude? End quote. Now, this is actually a reasonable question that psychologists have studied extensively. Research does in fact show that while circumstances and genetics play a significant role, our cognitive patterns and attributes really do impact our well-being in a very real way. So far, so good, right? But here's where it gets problematic. They claim that, quote, attitude often trumps circumstances and genes when it comes to happiness, end quote. While there's some truth to the importance of mindset, this oversimplification is dangerous when coming from an organization that creates traumatic circumstances through systematic shunning. Now, let me be crystal clear about something. According to a psychologist who researches the experience of leaving Jehovah's Witnesses, published on preachfromthehousetops.com in April 2024, quote, when one woman asked her mother, does this mean we can have a relationship again? This JW replied to her daughter, no, but I can now say hello to you if you come to the hall, end quote. That was in response to the new, kinder, gentler shunning, where people can actually say hi to you if you show up to church, which they call the Kingdom Hall. This psychologist, who was a born-in JW for decades before leaving in 2015, knows that this is the reality of Watchtower's circumstances that they expect people to overcome with a positive attitude. The article also quotes Proverbs 17:22. A joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit saps one's strength. Now, this proverb is actually quite accurate from a psychological perspective. Modern research confirms that positive emotions can boost immune function and overall health. But coming from Watchtower, this feels like a doctor who breaks your legs telling you that walking is good exercise. Let me share some real experiences from people who've been disfellowshipped as documented on the jwfacts.com website, which I cannot say enough positive words about if you want to understand the history and hypocrisy of Jehovah's Witnesses. Quote, 2 months of insomnia and PTSD, still have frequent nightmares and wake up sweating like I was in a war. All that and I'm reinstated, PMO. So yeah, disfellowshipping and shunning destroys your mental health. End quote. Another person shared on the same site, quote, it cut like a knife, a rusty old blade, or it felt like the elders were operating on me with a spoon. It's inhumane and should be shown to the whole world for what it is, torture, end quote. So yeah, a joyful heart might be good medicine, but what about when the organization itself is systematically crushing spirits through enforced shunning? The JW article then presents two hypothetical employees, Alex and Brian, who respond differently to criticism. Alex catastrophizes while Brian learns from the experience. The lesson, be more like Brian. This is actually decent advice in a normal workplace setting. Cognitive behavioral therapy does teach us to challenge catastrophic thinking. But here's what they're not telling you. In the Watchtower organization, even mild disagreement with doctrine can lead to being labeled an apostate. According to Raymond Fran's book on his experience as a former governing body member of the religion, quote, a letter dated September 1st, 1980, from the Watchtower Society to all circuit district overseers advised that a member who, quote, merely disagrees in thought with any of the Watchtower Society's teachings is committing apostasy and is liable for disfellowshipping, end quote. So while they're encouraging you to be like Brian and accepting feedback, they simultaneously run an organization where questioning or disagreeing with any teaching, even if that teaching later changes, can result in complete social exile. This section is where the hypocrisy reaches truly breathtaking levels. They contrast Andrea, who refuses to help others unless they help her first, with Brittany, who follows the golden rule. Now, let me ask you something. How does Watchtower treat those who leave? Do they follow the golden rule? Do unto others, etc., etc.? Again, according to JW Facts' extensive documentation, quote, the word hello should not be uttered to these ones, even in the Kingdom Hall, end quote. Parents are even instructed to shun their own children if they leave the religion. The Watchtower from April 15, 2012 says, quote, a young man had been disfellowshipped for over 10 years, during which time his father, mother, and 4 brothers quit mixing in company with him, end quote. So when this JW.org article we're discussing asks, quote, which of these 2 women would you rather have as a friend, end quote, well, I'd rather have a friend who doesn't abandon me the moment I question a teaching or make a mistake. I'd rather have family members who don't treat me as dead because I exercise my freedom of thought. How about that? The article then quotes Proverbs 24:10. If you become discouraged in the day of distress, your strength will be meager. They then share Julie's story, claiming the Bible helped her improve her outlook despite her difficult childhood. This is wonderful for Julisa, and I'm genuinely glad she found something that helped her. But let's talk about the distress Watchtower creates itself. According to the same psychologist research published on Preach from the Housetops in 2024, quote, one had her first suicide attempt at age 14 and has been sectioned under the Mental Health Act a number of times since. Another 2 females, both disfellowshipped at age 15, reported that they have never got over the experience of being disfellowshipped and shunned at such a young age, end quote. The article suggests we can be made new in our thinking. But what about those suffering from clinical depression, bipolar disorder, or PTSD, often triggered or exacerbated by Watchtower's very own policies? The article barely acknowledges that these are real medical conditions at all. Certainly those requiring professional help. They don't mention that. They quote Proverbs 15:15 about how a cheerful heart has a continual feast, then share Yanko's story of overcoming physical limitations after brain surgery. Again, Yanko's resilience is admirable, but notice what's missing. Any mention of professional therapy, counseling, or medical treatment for mental health. Instead, it's just read the Bible and think positive thoughts. This aligns with what researchers have found about Watchtower's approach. According to a 2014 JW Watch article analyzing leaked elder training videos, quote, in the above training video, the woman in a mental health emergency is given a type of spiritual counseling in which the Bible specifically is used instead of directing her to professional help. The fictional elders never even mention the idea of professional assistance. The JW.org article goes on to quote Acts 20, verse 35. There is more happiness in giving than there is in receiving. This is actually beautiful advice. Psychological research confirms that altruistic behavior increases well-being. They share Josue's story of finding happiness by helping others despite his spina bifida. But here's the massive contradiction. Watchtower forbids helping or even greeting disfellowshipped individuals, even if they're your own children. How can they promote the joy of giving while simultaneously mandating the cruelest form of withholding? And Watchtower doesn't have a charitable arm or encourage Jehovah's Witnesses to take part in any charitable activities outside of helping individual congregation members on your own. So much for finding happiness by helping others. The only way you get a hello if you leave is if you come back and sit there in repentance. According to the published study, What Happens to Those Who Exit Jehovah's Witnesses in PMC, that's PubMed Central, the U.S. National Institute of Health's digital database of biomedical and life sciences literature, quote, members who fall into this category are considered disfellowshipped and are not to be spoken to, contacted, or otherwise engaged by current JWs, end quote. The study notes that one former member was told by a current member, quote, your eyes look like the eyes of a dead person, end quote. How Christ-like. What this article completely fails to address is the mental health crisis within the Jehovah's Witness organization. Again, according to JW Facts and their comprehensive research on this, quote, despite a lack of reliable scientific studies, there is consistent indication of high levels of mental illness amongst Jehovah's Witnesses, end quote. The reasons for that should be obvious. Isolation from general society, fear-based control using Armageddon, the constant threat of disfellowshipping, now called removal, discouragement from seeking professional help, cognitive dissonance from changing doctrines, and on and on. As documented in that psychologist research I mentioned, quote, all disfellowshipped Jehovah's Witnesses at the time of their removal from the religion, in my research, still believed Armageddon is imminent and that they would very soon die, end quote. Perhaps the most damaging aspect of Watchtower's approach to mental health is how they characterize those who leave. While this JW.org article talks about improving your attitude, the Watchtower of July 15, 2011 stated that, quotes, apostates are mentally diseased and they seek to affect others with their disloyal teachings, end quote. So which is it? Can attitude overcome circumstances, or are people who disagree with you mentally diseased? The contradiction is staggering. Throughout my research for this video, the pattern of Watchtower's doublespeak regarding professional mental health treatment was glaring. As the 2014 JW Watch article notes, quote, Watchtower wants to be seen making statements such as mental health disorders are not the result of personal weakness or character flaw. Yet in their elders training material, the only mention of professional help is in a section called Assisting Those Who Are Weak. In public articles like this one on JW.org, they might acknowledge mental health issues exist, but behind closed doors, elders are trained to provide spiritual solutions rather than recommend professional help. According to JW Facts, quote, Watchtower generally shies away from promoting the benefits of professional treatment, end quote. That was absolutely my experience as a witness for 40 years. The culture looked at people who sought professional mental health treatment as spiritually weak, even if the literature did not directly say anything negative about those who did so. It was there in the culture. Now, let me share what actually happens when Watchtower policies meet mental health crises. This testimony comes from a JW Facts article on shunning. Quote, I live in Ghana, West Africa, a third generation of Jehovah's Witnesses. Before being disfellowshipped, I was in a mental wreck because I had been diagnosed with depression, PTSD, and anxiety disorder because of my history of child sex abuse. I reached out to my mental health officer, and he also in turn reached out to the lead elder because of my history of suicide and the lives involved. That fell on deaf ears, end quote. This poor person was pregnant when told she'd be disfellowshipped. The joy of becoming a first-time mother vanished, replaced by panic, fear, and depression. Despite her mental health officer reaching out to the elders about her history of suicide, they proceeded with the disfellowshipping. The JW.org article ends with this metaphor, quote, care for your attitude in the same way you would cultivate a garden. Root out the poisonous weeds of pessimism and negativity, end quote. You know what's truly a poisonous weed? An organization that breaks up families through mandated shunning, labels questioners as mentally diseased apostates, discourages professional mental health treatment, creates circumstances that drive people to suicide, Then tell those suffering to just have a better attitude. Now, I want to be fair. Not everything in this article is wrong. First, attitude does matter. Cognitive behavioral therapy shows our thought patterns affect our well being. Helping others is also beneficial. Altruistic behavior does improve mental health. Avoiding catastrophic thinking really helps. Learning to challenge negative thought spirals is valuable. Social connection is important. Having supportive relationships is crucial for mental health. The problem isn't these truths, it's that Watchtower weaponizes them while simultaneously creating conditions that make following this advice impossible for Jehovah's Witnesses. Here's the ultimate irony. If you're a Jehovah's Witness reading this article and you decide to seek professional help for depression or anxiety, you might be viewed as spiritually weak. If you question why your loving family shuns you, you're told to adjust your attitude. If you point out the organization's role in creating these kinds of mental health crises, you're labeled an apostate, mentally diseased, and cut off from everyone you love who's in the religion. Then they hand you articles like this one telling you to be positive. If you're a current witness struggling with mental health issues, please know, first of all, your struggles are valid. Depression, anxiety, PTSD, these are real medical conditions, not spiritual weaknesses. Professional help is okay, despite what you might hear at the Kingdom Hall, even if they don't talk about it in the publications anymore. Therapists and psychiatrists can provide life-saving treatment. You are not alone. Many have walked this path before you and found healing and happiness outside the organization. Your life has value. No matter what you've been told, you deserve love, respect, and proper mental health care. Quote, results suggest shunning has a long-term detrimental effect on mental health, job possibilities, and life satisfaction. Problems are amplified in female former members due to heavy themes of sexism and patriarchal narratives pervasive in Jehovah's Witness culture. End quote. That quote comes from the published research study, What Happens to Those Who Exit Jehovah's Witnesses in the PMC database I told you about. This isn't about having a bad attitude. This is about systematic psychological abuse disguised as spiritual discipline. If you're struggling with mental health issues, whether inside or outside of the Watchtower organization, please seek professional help. Find a licensed therapist who understands religious trauma. Build new support networks. Connect with others who understand your experience. By all means, educate yourself. Learn about cognitive biases, thought stopping, and undue influence. Watchtower uses all those things. But be patient with yourself. Healing from religious trauma can take a long time. And know that life does get better. Thousands of former witnesses have built happy, fulfilling lives. This article is a prime example of organizational gaslighting. They create traumatic circumstances through their policies, then blame individuals for not having a positive enough attitude to overcome them. They break up families, destroy support systems, and discourage professional help, and then publish articles about how attitude determines happiness. It's like an arsonist giving fire safety tips. As someone who spent 40 years in that organization, I can tell you that no amount of positive thinking will overcome the cognitive dissonance, the fear of Armageddon, or the pain of watching families torn apart by shunning. What helped me was getting out, getting professional help, and building genuine relationships based on unconditional love, not conditional approval based on organizational loyalty. Yes, attitude matters. Yes, helping others brings joy. Yes, avoiding catastrophic thinking is helpful. But when an organization systematically creates the very conditions that destroy mental health, then tells you it's your attitude that's the problem, that's not helpful advice, that's abuse. The real path to happiness isn't found in Watchtower publications that gaslight you about your suffering. It's found in genuine, unconditional relationships, professional mental health support when you need it, freedom to think, to question and to grow. Communities that support you through difficulties, not abandon you when bad things happen. Organizations that practice what they preach about love and compassion. If you're still in the organization and this resonates with you, know that many of us have been where you are. We've felt the cognitive dissonance. We've struggled with the contradictions. We've wondered if maybe we just need to pray more, study more, or adjust our attitude more. That's what they told us. But sometimes the problem isn't your attitude. Sometimes the problem is that you're in an organization that hurts people while claiming to help them. And recognizing that isn't pessimism, it's the beginning of genuine healing. This Watchtower article about attitude making a difference contains some universal truths, but they're wrapped in organizational propaganda. Yes, our mindset matters, but when an organization creates mental health crises through its policies of shunning, information control, and discouragement of professional help, then tells victims to simply have a better attitude, that's not spiritual food, that's spiritual poison. The thousands who have left and found genuine happiness aren't proof that apostates are mentally diseased. They're proof that sometimes the best thing you can do for your mental health is to leave the environment that's making you sick, no matter how much they tell you that the problem is with you. Your mental health matters. Your life matters. And you deserve better than gaslighting disguised as spiritual guidance. Thanks for watching, everyone. If this video helped you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, it's not your attitude that needs adjusting, it's your environment. And remember, if you're still a Christian, I have a faith-based channel that you can see in the video description. And if you're still a Christian, you might want to take a look at this. My new book, The Broken Mirror, Rediscovering Our True Nature in Christ, will transform how you see yourself forever. Stop living as a struggling sinner trying to be good enough and discover you're already a beloved child of God with His divine nature flowing through you. This book will free you from shame, give you unshakable identity, and show you how to access God's peace, wisdom, and strength from within. The book shows how this story unfolds from Genesis to Revelation and teaches you to live from rest, see others as fellow image bearers, and step into your true calling as a radiant reflector of divine light. Your daily struggles will become opportunities for God's nature to shine through you. Get ready to live the abundant life Jesus promised. The link to the book is in the video description. May God bless your journey along His path for you.